All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for attending, especially our panelists and our attendees. This is our first college panel with the VTHS Department of School Counseling. My name is Ray Lockard. I'm a school counselor here. We're all going to introduce ourselves, starting with Ms. Regan.
Nancy Regan, school counselor.
Caitlin Ferrari, school counselor.
Mary Jean Ryerson, school counselor.
Brianna Walker, intern.
So each of these folks from their institutions are going to have the opportunity to answer questions from the community and questions from our department. Each one of them is going to get a chance to answer each question. If they don't have anything to add to any of the questions, they can let me know that they'd like to pass. Okay. And now I will starting with Penn State, and then Ramapo, and then TCNJ, and then Stockton, and then Quinnipiac. If you guys could please introduce yourselves, let us know your name and what school you're coming from.
Sure. Thank you, Ray, for having me. My name is Stacy Kovalycsik. I'm from Penn State University. I'm thrilled to be here tonight. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Quinones. I'm from Ramapo College. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for spending some time with us tonight. My name is Kevin Fay. I'm one of the assistant directors for undergraduate admissions at the College of New Jersey.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Cheyenne Meyer. I'm a first-year counselor here at Stockton University, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have tonight.
I'll close it out here. Hi, everyone. Michael James, Associate Director of Admissions and Communications at Quinnipiac University. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you all again for coming. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for the community to learn more about the questions that are on everyone's mind when they're, especially when they're students, a junior and a senior, and you don't know what's, you talk amongst each other and on Facebook, and I think that you guys will be able to add some clarity to a lot of questions that we all have as well. So thank you again. All right, so we'll move on to questions. The first question is going to be going to start with Penn State. That question is, how are applications evaluated? What do you look for in a student's application?
Sure, that's a great question. So there are a lot of parts that make up an application, right? So when you are thinking about the application process, yes, there is the good old online application. You can apply to us using either the Common App or our app directly. So that's the application, and then that's part one. And then you have the self-reported academic record, where you are going to tell us, it's sort of like you take your high school transcript and you go in line by line and tell us what classes you're taking, what grades you're getting in that class. And that replaces years ago, your counseling office would send us your high school transcript, but we've moved to a self-reported academic record. So you have that online application, and then that self-reported academic record, which is really going to tell us the classes that you're taking in high school, the grades you're getting, your GPA. That tends to be the meat of our application process. We are a school that is test optional, so you can send us your test scores, which would be either your SAT or your ACT scores. We do need those scores directly from the testing service if you are choosing to send us your test scores, right? So if you want your test scores used in your evaluation of your application, you can send them to us and we will use them. However, if you don't want your scores used, or you didn't take standardized testing, you can apply to us test optional, and we will not use those, and you're not penalized. It's truly one of those ways which you can control the admissions process, right? Decide if you want to use your test scores or not. And then there are a few optional sections of our application where we have a personal statement. You'll tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then you are able to also include activities. So Penn State is a school that gets a lot of applications, right? So we get over 100,000 applications a year. We're the second most applied to school in the country. So we are a school that doesn't have a lot of extra things or other things in our application process. I don't mean to say extra, but you'll hear from some of my colleagues that there are additional parts of an application. But for a large state school like Penn State, we are primarily looking at your application, which includes biographical information, but also programs in which you apply to, campuses which you may be choosing, that SAR, your self-reported academic record, and then your test scores if you send those to us. And then, like I said, the personal or the optional parts of your application. When we're reviewing an application, it is primarily an academic decision that is sort of driven by your work in high school. So that's what we are looking for. I will pass it on to my colleagues to talk a little bit about what they're looking for in their application process.
Hi, everyone. So very similar to Penn State, we are SAT, ACT optional. However, unlike Penn State, Ramapo College is the smallest public college in New Jersey. So we do look for, as was said, extras. One of the extras we do look for is demonstrated interest. And that includes meeting with your admissions counselor, coming to the school for a tour, going to an open house, anything that demonstrates your interest. When it comes down to a student with similar profiles, what we're looking for is who is more interested in the school. Of course, your essay, your letter of recommendation, and your transcript. We do expect your transcripts. You can self-report, but we do require your transcripts from your high school. But again, very similar to Penn State. I will pass it on.
At TCNJ, we are a holistic review office, which is probably a major buzz term. Many of you joining us tonight will hear from some other institutions, but it essentially means that all parts of the application that you ultimately choose to include with your application will have an impact, good or bad, on your final admissions decision. But the bulk of our decision is based on much of the same materials that were already mentioned here. We are an institution that does measure demonstrated interest. So the frequency or extent to which we're interacting with our prospective student pool, and especially our applicants, does have an impact ultimately on the admissions decisions that we render. We are still currently at least test optional, meaning it is up to you as the applicant whether or not you want to include those test scores. The one exception to the rule is our accelerated 7-year BSMD program. For that unique program, we do still require standardized test scores, but we try to be as forward as we can in communicating with students about what parts of the application we require, what is optional, and what parts have been received and will be included with the application review utilizing our portal, which will communicate with students throughout the process.
Hi, everybody. I would like to add something. When going through the process with your students, try to encourage them to be very specific with their activities that they're including on the Common App. I know there's that section where they can put what they're involved in school, and then as well as extracurricular activities, but it's important if they're a president of a club or anything like that, they're a captain of a sports team. That's all things that we're looking at as well, that they're showing those leadership skills while they're in high school so they can bring that into college, and we're able to look at that as well.
I'll just kind of, it's going last, is sort of taking bits and pieces of what everyone else has said so far. With Quinnipiac, so Common App, test optional for the vast majority of programs. However, there are a couple programs on campus that are test required. So our PA program, physician assistant, and our 3+3 law program both require you to submit test scores. A couple of our other health science programs are test recommended, so nursing, OT, and PT. So they are technically test optional, but we do encourage you to submit test scores with those majors in particular. And one of the other things that I'll piggyback, we also track demonstrated interest, like a few of my colleagues before, and that is to what everyone else had said, campus visits, open houses, when we see you on the road, et cetera. But we also will do interviews on the road. So we're happy to set up some times when we are in your area whether that's at a college fair or we're already doing visits in your area that day. So if you are able to sign up for interviews, whether we're traveling there or when you come up to visit campus, that factors into demonstrated interest, and we'll add that to your application as well. So I just wanted to add that interview piece because I know it hadn't been mentioned. Some schools don't do interviews at all. Some schools they do, and I just wanted to mention that because it hadn't been covered yet. But everything else, again, bits and pieces of what has been covered by my colleagues.
Okay, thank you guys so much. So our next question, we're going to start with our Ramapo representative. The question is, are there different admissions requirements for different departments or majors?
No, Ramapo is a liberal arts school, so most majors are the same through and through, except for nursing, which I think is for a lot of schools, unfortunately. I come from a nursing family. It is a difficult major. We don't require SAT scores. However, if a student submits them for a nursing major, it is helpful as long as it is 1300 or above. Otherwise, I just pretend I don't see it. And also your senior year classes do matter specifically for nursing, especially. You're taking chemistry classes, bio classes, AMP if it's offered at your school. If you can take it at another school, do so and try to get good grades on all those science classes, because if you want to become a nurse, we don't necessarily care if you're great at art, but we do care if you're great at chemistry or any of the sciences or math. And I would say that's the only major we have that is very specific. And that's it.
And at TCNJ, the requirements themselves are the same in terms of the materials we'll look at for all majors is the same. But I will be transparent in that for a small handful of our programs, I'd say under 10 out of 50, the eligibility requirements for admission to those programs is slightly higher, given the volume and quality of students who are applying to those especially popular programs in any given graduating class. Unfortunately, in admissions, we don't know which programs are going to be the hot majors until the applications start to come in and we see which programs have that large volume of applications. But again, the materials we're actually looking at are going to be the same for everyone.
Okay, so moving on to the next question. This is going to actually start with TCNJ. Are there certain courses that you expect to see on the transcript? I know that a lot of like in regards to New Jersey state requirements versus what a school recommends, like a high-level math class, for example.
At TCNJ, we're a comprehensive liberal arts institution, so regardless of the major you're applying to, you're going to have to take a liberal, what we call a liberal learning curriculum, what a lot of other schools call kind of general education requirements. So broad courses that all students have to take. So we're looking generally for 4 years of each of the what we consider the core academic areas. So your history, English, math, science. We usually look for 3 years of a foreign language. However, those are not hard requirements. It's not like automatic dismissal of an applicant because they didn't meet those standards, but for our most qualified applicants, that is ideally what we're looking for. What we're most especially focusing on is the rigor of your chosen curriculum throughout your high school, meaning the strength of the courses you've opted to take based on what was available to you in your specific high school curriculum. And ideally, we want to see that you're preparing yourself for college level work. And if anything, you're increasing that course rigor in each subsequent year of high school.
Piggybacking off of TCNJ, very similar at Ramapo. And while we do look for rigor courses, I always tell students, if you think your basic math class versus the AP class or the honor class, you can get an A at that basic math class versus a C or a B in the honor or AP class, then take the regular math class. We'd rather see a consistent transcript versus a student who struggled in AP or honors, and then went back to regular classes and did well. You know, high school is not meant to be so difficult. You know, enjoy it, enjoy your 4 years and challenge yourself, but you can challenge yourself with activities as well.
I would completely agree. We do like to see the students challenging themselves all around, but specifically on those transcripts. Just to give you an example for our nursing program, something that they're looking for is a strong GPA, preferably a 3.5 or above, and 4 years of English, 3 years at science, and then at least 1 year of chemistry. They want to see the student doing very well in those math and science courses when they're doing those looking at the transcripts.
From my perspective, I'll just give kind of a general breakdown. All of our liberal arts courses, so College of Arts and Sciences here at Quinnipiac, that is mainly true, right? Like we're looking for sort of rigor across the board. But we have some programs that we are really looking at specific course selection and grades in those courses, right? So for health sciences and nursing, we would love students who have taken a higher level lab science. So AP Bio, AP Chem, honors anatomy and physiology, like some high level lab science. For engineering, don't apply, like I would discourage you from applying as an engineer if you haven't taken some high level physics or calculus class, because that's what all first year engineering students are going to have to take. In business, I think more and more institutions are moving away from calculus as a kind of requirement for business schools. That was the case at my last institution, and now I'm seeing stats more popular for 12th grade students rather than worrying about being an AP Calc, AB, or BC. Having at least a statistics background would be helpful for business majors, particularly the less math intensive ones, marketing, management, et cetera. But those courses are helpful. Like if we see in high school that you're an A student in the courses that are most relevant to your intended major, that helps us from an admission standpoint. But if you tell me that you're applying to mechanical engineering and you're a B student in, or excuse me, a D student in physics and calculus, that doesn't give me sort of promise that you're going to be successful in college in that major, right? So we want to make sure that you are showing us in high school that you are prepared for the major that in theory, again, you are most passionate about pursuing.
Thank you, guys. Our next question, how important are SAT/ACT scores and AP scores to your respective institutions? We will start with Stockton.
So we are a test optional institution. For some of our programs, our dual degree programs we do, and as well as our nursing, we do require SAT scores, and those vary depending upon the program. But as far as being eligible for merit scholarship, we look mostly at the GPA. And then as far as everything else with extracurricular activities, their essay, which is required. So the students, they can use SAT scores to show math readiness, but they don't have to, because we also have our AccuPlacer exam if they're not looking to go into a program that's requiring SAT scores.
Yeah, pretty similar. I mean, test score, we're test optional, except for some programs that I mentioned before at the very beginning, our health science programs, again, PA required, and then nursing, PT, OT, test recommended. Merit scholarships for us are purely just GPA. So test scores don't have any factor in our merit scholarship process. We removed that a couple of years ago. So don't worry about submitting those to be considered for scholarships. But other than that, I kind of outlined our test policy here.
I'll just jump in to add, you asked about AP scores. We do not use those in the application process at all. AP test scores are typically used for us if a student decides to enroll at the university, and then you go through the advising process through our new student orientation, and you're able to sit down with your advisor and say, listen, I got 5 in AP calculus. Then we look at what credit we'll give you once you've enrolled at the university. So those AP scores are really not part of the admissions process at all.
Okay, thank you. All right, our next question is, who should I ask to write my letters of recommendation? And we'll start with Quinnipiac.
It's a tough one for me. I would be as transparent as I can be and say that letters of recommendation are the, generally speaking, least useful component to a student's application for me. So I'm not speaking for my colleagues here. I'm speaking just specifically for me. And the reason for that is you should be asking folks who know you best, right? So whether that's your counselor, whether that's a coach, whether that's a teacher, a priest, whomever that is. And hopefully they are going to say positive things about your ability to succeed in college, your character. Again, I think it's the people that know you best in whatever capacity. I think there should be an academic letter. I think the sort of holistic personal character. The reason that I don't tend to put a ton of stock in letters of recommendation generally is, again, because they're all going to say positive things about you. So when I'm trying to help evaluate an applicant pool, no one's going to say the bad stuff that I don't want to hear, right? So as a tool to evaluate an applicant, I don't find them to be particularly useful. But to answer this question, like I said, it's, I think, having someone who knows you from an academic standpoint and someone who knows a little bit about you outside of school as well.
I would just add, unfortunately, TCNJ does not offer students the opportunity to interview for admissions. So for us, the letters of recommendation most especially serve as character references, like Mike just shared. So academic references, I think, don't necessarily hold as much weight. Not that you couldn't approach a teacher, but we're just hoping you approach a teacher who also knows you as a person, not just as a student in their academic class, and can speak to the qualities of your character and really paint a picture for us of what kind of a campus community member you're going to be, not necessarily what kind of a student are you going to be in a classroom setting, because the truth is throughout your undergraduate career, you're so much more than that. You're spending more time outside the classroom than you are inside the classroom. So we certainly appreciate those letters as kind of a brief window into who you are as a person.
So we don't require letters of recommendation, but I do find them helpful in reviewing an application, because sometimes students will almost sell themselves short a little bit. Like I was talking about that activity section before, but then when I go through and read those letters of recommendation, I tend to find some information about the student that the teacher or the coach or somebody shared about the student that they didn't necessarily put on there. So that all takes into factor. So that's definitely helpful when a counselor or a teacher includes really good, helpful information about volunteer or activities that the student's involved in, so we can keep that in mind when we're assessing the application.
That's really helpful. Thank you, everyone. Our next question: does my senior year schedule and course list make a difference in my application? And actually, this goes to Ramapo. You did speak a little bit to this, but if there's anything else that any of you can add to it, Ramapo has the floor.
Sure. So as I said earlier, we do look at rigor. It's not the most important thing, but we do weigh it. I notice often that students will be incredibly rigorous their first 3 years, and their senior year, they just kind of go straight classes. Their senior year, they want to party. However, it can hurt them in that case. So if you started off with just regular classes and you keep on going, awesome for you. However, if you're starting off strong and you end weak, it can affect you. Do not let your senior year lapse. If you want to end strong, then finish off strong. Take an AP class, take a college prep class, take an honors class, take a dual enrollment class. We definitely at Ramapo look at your senior year. We look at your whole transcript, but your senior year is definitely important. And for us, it's because we are a holistic liberal arts school, and we think to ourselves, okay, if this student can't finish off strong, how are they going to do well in a very small competitive environment? So finish off strong.
The other thing I would just quickly add to that I find prospective students and their families don't always necessarily think about is, for many of us on the panel tonight and many other institutions, you will likely have to take placement exams as incoming students. And if you're, say, rusty in a particular academic area and you sit for that placement exam, you could potentially test into a lower level for that subject area and have to take multiple classes in, say, a foreign language if you haven't taken a foreign language in 2 years. But if you're strong in that area and you sit for the placement exam, and you could potentially test out of having to take it at all in the college or university, that's only freeing up more space in your schedule for you to pursue the courses you really want.
I'll just add, it's 100% worth talking to your particular institution's admissions counselor about this question. So I'm new to Quinnipiac after working 4 years at another institution, where at that institution, we did not look at senior year grades at all. You were done after 11th grade. We looked at your 12th grade schedule, but we didn't look at all at 12th grade coursework. Whereas at Quinnipiac, I can't tell you how many students I've reviewed over the past couple months, especially that may have been borderline for admission. I come back to them and I ask for either first quarter or semester marking period grades. And they've done really well, and that earns them an offer. But it's really school to school. So just check in with whoever you're applying to, because again, some won't look at them at all, and unfortunately you're done, whereas others do want to kind of monitor that progress and use it almost as a tiebreaker that can sort of make or break an admissions offer potentially.
Thank you, Michael. It actually had me think about another question regarding mid-year reports. So students tend to dread the mid-year report. How much stock do each of your schools put into receiving a student's mid-year report, or do you not take a student, or do you not ask for mid-year reports, or is it something that goes on a case-by-case basis? And for this one, we can start with Penn State.
You know, we don't ask for them and we don't want them. So, but we do, but we will check to make sure that you graduate from high school. So, I echo what everybody else said. You still want to continue to work, but no, we don't need mid-year reports.
Ramapo, we don't require midterm reports. And if I see them, I typically ignore them. We don't need them. We don't want them. You can feel free to submit them, but we'll just ignore it.
We don't require them at TCNJ. Students are welcome to submit them if they want, but I know my colleagues and I aren't necessarily shy about reaching out to a school counseling office to request a mid-year report if we feel that's important for us to render an accurate decision.
We do require the students to submit that report during their senior year and see how they're doing in their classes in that final semester.
Great, thank you. All right, our next question, is it required that students sign off on the FERPA statement for essays? And we can start with TCNJ.
It is not a requirement dictated by us as an institution, but we are a Common App and Coalition App participant. So when students are submitting those materials, they'll fill out all required fields for those applications and any supplemental fields or questions that we as an institution provide. But it's not like a required checklist item on our application portal for applicants.
Can you see when a student doesn't sign off on a FERPA statement?
To the best of my knowledge, I don't know that we get any kind of different notification on the institutional side when we're receiving and loading the applications from the system. That may be something we can dig for if we wanted to in the actual application itself, in the application platform, but I don't know that we receive, at least at TCNJ through our CRM system, that we receive the applications through that we're flagged by that.
Thank you, Kevin. Next question is going to be for Stockton, and I think this one each of you will be able to answer. How important is my essay? And what do you really look for in a personal essay, which is, I think, something that students work either really, you know, they tend to put a lot of thought into, hopefully. And we'd love to hear from you guys on that, starting with Cheyenne. Thank you.
Yep. Yes, so we do require an essay with the Common App. Typically, it is a prompt, and then the student can go ahead and write a personal essay based upon that prompt. I like to read essays based on a personal experience, or if a student is passionate about something, if they're going into a specific field. We do have a lot of majors here in the medical field. So if a student is involved in an internship opportunity and they decide to write about that, that really lets me get to know them on a personal level and figure out what they're passionate about and what their aspirations are coming into college. So the more personal you can get with the essay, and the more time, we can definitely tell when you take time into it. I think it's very important to really sit down and figure out what you want to write about, so we can get to know you as best as we can while reading your essay and doing your application.
I mentioned before that I don't put a ton of stock in letters of recommendation. I am the opposite with essays. I do read essays and value them highly. You're the one coming to college, so I'd rather hear from you, the student, than someone else talking about you. Like, I need to see your fit for the institution. So essays do matter to me. We read them in volume, to Cheyenne's point. So the students that are intentional in their responses, that are thoughtful, that can catch our attention somehow, those are the ones that I enjoy reading most, that stick out of the 1,500 something apps that I have to read every year. And again, they do help us get to know you. Our healthcare students actually have a required piece on top. It's a specific prompt that they have to write about a paragraph in addition to the main Common App essay. But it is actually one of my favorite parts of the application review is hearing from the student and being inspired by their journey, whether it's because they're first generation, whether it's an injury they suffered and now they want to be X, Y, and Z major. They had a change of heart in what they want to do, or a career for following in a parent's footsteps, whatever it is. Like, I'm happy to read those. The only ones that I kind of get little tired of is I made, and I'm a huge sports fan, but like, not everyone made the buzzer beater in the state championship game. Like, there's just no way, like, you couldn't have had that many opportunities to do that. So those I don't really need, but really kind of personal ones, I'm happy to read those.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question, on the Common App, is the optional essay really optional? And if we can start with Quinnipiac.
I'll be honest, I don't exactly know what the option. So on our application, we have the personal essay, the Common App essay. I'm not entirely sure what the optional essay is.
So
my general thought process is, if it says optional, you should probably do it, just as like a life philosophy, but I don't really know what this is, so I can't sit here in good faith and tell you to do that, at least not for us.
So at Ramapo, an essay is required. It is not optional. However, if you are applying into the honors program, which is optional, you are required to do an additional 2 essays on top of the mandatory essay. So 3 essays altogether for honors. But we do not have an optional option. I think that is just some colleges. That is not Ramapo, and apparently it is not Quinnipiac that we require an essay.
I will jump in as one of the optionals. I also don't know exactly what the wording of this question means, or what we're talking about, but for us, our personal statement is optional, and you can do it on the Common App, or you can do it separately through Penn State. It doesn't matter. If you are going to submit it, it doesn't matter which one you submit. We, like everybody else, we load it. And if it's there, great. If it's not there, that's okay too. And in most cases, we're making an academic decision without the personal statement because it's optional. But as an optional thing, if we need something else to look for on the application, that we will look to see if it's there. And if it's optional, it usually, if students fill it out, it usually helps them.
I will share more broadly as it relates to anything optional, at least tied to our process at TCNJ. That's also in large part considered demonstrated interest, meaning I usually strongly encourage any student who feels strongly about us as an institution. If there is anything optional that we offer out to you, treat it as required if you want to essentially tell us that I believe you're a really good fit school for me. So I want you to have this additional information to make the most informed decision.
I completely agree. And it kind of goes along with the letters of recommendation. We do not require them, but they are optional. So it's the same thing. We really want to see everything coming together to make a complete application.
Thank you, everyone. So this question, which is going to start with Penn State, is it important to visit campus in person? And I'll add to that because we have a lot of conversations with students. Students always hear that, oh, colleges know when you go and visit. How do you know that they visited? Do they have to make an appointment? If they don't make an appointment and just visit, I don't think there's any way you know that they visited. And does that matter for for the applicant to have shown that demonstrated interest to visit the college?
Yeah, so let me say personally, yes, I think it's incredibly important to visit the schools that you are considering. Any schools, I think it's really important as part of your college search process to do a lot of visiting. And that doesn't even necessarily mean that you have to travel far. You know, here in New Jersey, you have options to visit schools where you can see large state schools, you can see small private schools, you can see schools that are a little bit more urban, a little bit more suburban, and see what feels good to you and what's a good fit for you. I think the visit is really important to figuring out what that fit is. Now, with that said, and the more you visit, I think the better you'll be able to narrow down where you feel comfortable and where you're going to be happy and what's going to be a good fit for you, not only for your education for the next 4, 5, 6 years, but also what's going to be a good fit for you for your resume and the alumni group that you're going to be part of for the rest of your life, right? See if it feels good to you. Now, with that said, it is not part of our admissions process at all if you choose to visit our university or not, because we get so many visitors and we have so many applications. That's just not part. We don't track visitation as part of our admissions process. But I do think it's really important for you to visit a lot of schools as you are making your list and making your applications. But I think even more important is to visit the schools that you have been accepted to go through that accepted student programming in sort of I guess the winter into the spring of your senior year. So then you can really narrow down from those schools you've been accepted to. And oftentimes you're able to do a little bit more in-depth visit at that time, seeing labs, meeting perhaps with students, shadowing classes, perhaps really having an opportunity to get in a little bit deeper at the universities that you're considering.
The other thing I'll mention, like to echo a lot of what Stacy said, but in terms of emphasizing the campus visit experience, also doing it during that school's academic year. So if you can only come during the summer, like that's better than not visiting at all. But really to get a feel for the campus, you need to visit while school is in session. So that's typically right after kind of September 1st ballpark, and then into the first or second weekend of May. Some schools go longer, whatever, but typically schools in the summer just don't have a lot going on. You're not going to get a complete picture of that institution, and you want to see not just what the campus looks like, the academic building, but you want to see students on that campus. You want to see them eating in a dining hall. You want to see them at a sporting event. You're only going to be able to do that during the school year. So I'd really encourage you to do that more timely visit rather than just I'll come whenever. Try and be more intentional about when you come.
Visiting Ramapo is very important because the most important thing you could do for applying to Ramapo is showing demonstrated interest, and that includes visiting the campus. To answer your question on how we know you visited the campus is we do track it. If you do visit the campus and you don't schedule an appointment, we encourage you to schedule an appointment. But if you don't and you just show up, please stop by the admissions office. It's really big, it's really large. There are security officers everywhere that can direct you, professors everywhere, students everywhere. Go to the admissions office, let someone know so we can take your name down and put you in the system. That's how we track you, because that, for Ramapo at least, demonstrated interest is the #1 thing we do look for. Also, to go with what everyone else said, students, you could have the perfect major at a school, maybe your friends are there, maybe your parents want you to go there. But if you do not like the campus, it's not for you. You know, again, Ramapo is the smallest public college in New Jersey. Maybe that's for you. Maybe you love a very intimate environment, or maybe you want hectic chaos. Maybe you want Penn State. You won't know that until you go to campus. At Ramapo, we do have something called Admittance Day. So even if you don't visit the campus, but you just do a virtual tour, or you just apply because your friends told you to, or maybe you got an app fee waiver code, you can attend an Admittance Day, see how it is. It's usually on a day where we have classes and professors are around, and you can get the feel, and maybe it's just not for you, but it goes both ways. It's beneficial for you to get in, and it's beneficial for you to see if you want to be in.
At Stockton, we hold ambassador-led tours Monday through Friday every week. So if a student does come on campus for a tour just on their own, they can come into our admissions office and sign up for a tour, but they also have access to doing that beforehand online. So we do give the students that want to come see campus plenty of opportunity to do that, as well as all of our other events that we hold on campus. We are in an extremely unique location. We're in the middle of the Pinelands National Reserve, and then 10 minutes away is our Atlantic City campus. So getting the students actually on the campus, we can show them pictures, but I think we really get to hook students when we get them here, and just getting them that wow factor and being able to be immersed in this campus community.
Great, thank you. All right, next question. How do you evaluate applications differently in early action and early decision rounds rather than in regular decision rounds? And we will start with Ramapo.
Sure, so early action is the first round of apps we review. So they're typically the students who get the scholarships first, get accepted first, get into the nursing program, any competitive program we have first, which for us is nursing, education, our business program, and our computer science program. But also with early action, we do require a deposit, and we do require a signed contract from both the parent and the student saying that, hey, we are officially saying we're going to Ramapo. It is a non-refundable deposit. The early decision, the difference with that is that early decision is no deposit. However, now you're the second round. So you also are now thought of before regular decision for scholarships and getting into competitive programs. Early decision is also our final deadline for nursing apps, bio apps, and any pre-med, pre-vet, pre-dental apps, any of those joint programs. And it's also the deadline for scholarship consideration, which is merit-based.
At TCNJ, we don't offer early action. We only offer early decision and general admission. And while our review process is the same, again, I feel like I keep harping on this, but we do value demonstrated interest. And kind of in my opinion, there's no greater way to demonstrate your interest than apply to an institution early decision if they offer that as an option, because it is a binding agreement that you're making with that institution. And an early decision, for those of you on the call, if you're not familiar, is really only intended for the kind of student who has visited many schools, has completed their college search, and they can't get one particular school out of their head. And they're convinced that this is the school for them. And they've crunched the numbers in terms of cost of attendance for that particular institution, and they believe it's a good fit and it's a viable fit. for the student and the family to potentially apply, because ideally we want the students who want to be at our institution. So we do have a slightly higher admit rate for our early decision applicant pool versus our general admission applicant pool.
I will add in that we actually at Penn State, we do not have early decision. We only have early action. So I know you've heard some like every school has told you a little bit different thing here. So I think that that's probably an important point for you guys in this college search process is, you know, doing the research about the schools specifically that you are interested in. So for us, early action would mean a complete application on file by November 1st. You're guaranteed an admissions decision by December 24th. Early action is truly, if you're interested in Penn State, I would encourage you to apply early action. We fill our seats at our most popular campuses and our most popular programs with students who are in that early action application pool. After that early action application pool, we do move and roll to a rolling admissions application process after that. But then the seats that are available are the seats that are available later in the year. So since we are early action and it is non-binding, we encourage students who are really interested to apply by that November 1st early action deadline. It's non-binding, it's just a school you're going to apply to early and you're going to hear back earlier in your senior year. Keep it in the rest of your back pocket for the rest of your year. You have until May 1st to accept your offer of admission to Penn State or wherever else it may be. So for us, we see no downside to you as a student, and we truly encourage you to apply early action.
So we don't have early action, but we do offer instant decision days. So students who are ambitious and want to apply early, we encourage them to attend that type of event. And then I will tell you, after January 31st, we still do offer merit money and we are rolling admissions. But after that January 31st date, the merit scholarship does decrease some. But before that date, that's when you're going to be able to get the maximum amount of merit scholarship.
Short answer for me, the only programs on campus that are looked at differently in regular decision are the health science programs that I mentioned before. I don't think we take anybody for PA in regular decision. All of those seats have already been allocated. Nursing is the same. Those are all allocated in early action or early decision. There are some spaces for PT, a few more for OT, but other than that, across campus, our other 50-something majors, there's no difference between early action decision, regular decision. If you want the healthcare majors, health science majors in particular, you should not wait until regular decision. We just don't have space because of the competitiveness of those pools.
Okay, great. All right, next question. With so many schools SAT optional, how are admission officers able to compare students from different high schools across the state and nation, each of which may have dramatically different approaches to grading? And we were going to start with Penn State.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I think that that families like to think that we are comparing applications to other applications, right? Like we're looking at a student from this school versus a student from this school, or students within the schools versus each other. We're not doing that at all. We are not comparing you to other students. We're always looking at your application in the context of the high school education that's available to you. So different schools offer different programs, different high schools offer different AP courses, different schools in different areas of the country have different curriculums that are required. There's different rigor. So what we're doing when we're reviewing your application is we're reviewing it in the context of your high school. That's why if you do send a transcript, it comes to us with this it almost looks like a menu, a school profile often, where we're able to see the classes that your high school offers, how many students are enrolled in your high school, how many AP classes you offer, all of that information when we get the profile. You're able to fill that information out also on a SAR, which is a self-reported academic record. So we're really looking at your application in the context of the school you're attending. So, without testing, it is it's a more holistic process. I've been at Penn State University for 16 years, and prior to COVID, for the first 13 years I worked here, we looked very closely at test scores. When you are getting 100,000 applications, we did need to use test scores. What I think is an interesting positive outcome of COVID to students in the application process is we no longer require them, right? So if you take the test scores, you are able to send them and we will use them. But if you don't, it allows you to control your application process a little bit. And I think that can favor students, right? We are looking at the university to admit you to the university if we're able to do so. So I think it allows you to make a decision about putting your best foot forward in the application process. And if you're a great test taker and you took the test and you're really proud of your scores and you think they're reflective of your academic ability, send us your scores, we'll use them. But if you're not able to, that's fine. So then we're looking more carefully at that high school work. We're pulling it apart. If you are applying for, let's say, an engineering program at my university, we're looking a little bit more in depth at those math and science classes in high school, right? So we're looking just deeper into the academic transcript and the academic work there. But we're always looking at it in the context of what's available to you at your high school versus comparing you to other schools across the town, state, country, world, whatever it may be.
I completely echo what Stacy just shared. The one thing that I'll just add to kind of help families understand it a little bit more is I'm sure all of my peers and colleagues here agree in that admissions offices at institutions are completely data driven, meaning it's not like we're receiving a series of applicants from one particular high school for the first time in this year's graduating class. So we have a record of GPA distributions for prior graduating classes from that same school with access to the same curriculum. So we'll have a general sense of what GPAs are strong and or what cumulative GPAs coming from that particular high school, how students who have those GPAs perform at our institutions, and we could kind of work backwards. So if we paint a picture of the profile of a student who from one particular high school do well at our institutions, then we'll ideally look for similar students, at least academically, from that same high school.
Thank you. So this question likely could have been asked previously based on early decision. So can approximate financial aid be calculated prior to requesting early decision? And for those of you that offer early decision, if you could shed some light on this question, that we'd be thankful.
No. You cannot find out what you're going to receive from financial aid simply because financial aid or your financial aid application has an end date or a deadline that is beyond our early decision deadline. So sorry. However, if you do apply early decision, you apply through Ramapo, you will find out your decision letter, you will receive your decision letter via email and physical by February 1st. And within that month is when you'll find out your financial aid package, and you'll also find out if you received any scholarships.
At TCNJ, for early decision applicants, they won't get an estimate from our SFA office. So we strongly encourage, if need-based aid eligibility is a major deciding factor as to what school you're going to attend, we usually discourage students from applying ED to TCNJ. That said, for merit scholarship eligibility, you'll know at TCNJ at the time of admission if you apply early decision. you'll know what merit scholarship award you've qualified for, but you won't know need-based aid until usually mid-March. Our SFA office releases those need-based aid packages. All that being said, regardless of what method you use to apply to any institution, I believe it's federally mandated that we should all have cost calculators on our websites. So if families are seriously considering an institution and they want to get a rough sense of what cost of attendance could be at their particular institution, they should have an opportunity to feed their data into that cost calculator so they have a rough idea of what to expect.
Our next question, do you have a roommate matching program? And if we can start with TCNJ.
As part of our housing application process, when students, because we are a residential campus, meaning the vast majority of our undergraduate student population do live on the campus itself. When students are filling out the application for housing to secure a space, they are asked a series of questions that our res ed office then uses to pair you with a roommate. So there's like a housing survey that asks you things like, are you a night person or a morning person? What are your study habits? Like, what kind of music do you listen to? And they use that information to ideally pair students. And a recent change to our housing process now affords students the opportunity to actually rank their top 3 choices of the facilities on campus as to where they want to live. And they also now have the ability, if they know another student coming in and they want to room with them, they can request a room with a particular student.
So ours is very similar. Our application for housing for the fall actually just opened up January 15th. And they can also put each other's names on there, but it kind of protects the students. That way, if one student puts the person that they want to room with, but they don't, the other person doesn't put the other student's name, they look at that too. That way everybody's kind of in agreement of who wants to live with that person and then where they want to live. It also asks questions. What time do you get up? What time do you think you're going to have classes? Are you somebody that likes to be up all hours of the night? All those types of questions too, we look at in order to make the best roommate compatibility.
Couple other things. I'm sorry, could you go ahead? Christina?
No, go for it.
Just a couple other things briefly I'll mention. One, I think across higher ed, and schools call them different things. They tend to be called either living learning communities or living learning programs, whatever, again, the institution calls them. But if you're someone who knows that you want to live in a sort of a like-minded community, whether that's an academic community, a cultural community, professional community. So for instance, at Quinnipiac, there's honors, business, nursing. There's one for esports, but there are these communities that will pair students together. So rather than being in a general residence hall, you can live with others who are similar to you. And that's, I think, trending nationwide. I don't want to speak for my colleagues here specifically, right? But more schools are moving to that living learning community model. The other thing I'll mention is, I think, an increased use for students now, rather than relying solely on the housing office of campuses to find their roommates. They're doing it through social media. So if you just did a quick search now on Instagram in particular, you'll find unofficial class of pages. So class of 2027 is the current group now, but you could find that for Quinnipiac. For the school that I used to work at, just search class of 2027. Students will submit their pictures, they'll write little bios, they'll be posted by these accounts, and then students start messaging each other, and then they kind of indicate whether they want to live with each other or not. And then the housing office, to Cheyenne's point, can match them if they share their names on each other's housing application. So again, if you don't necessarily trust someone else to put you together, the housing office, you can use social media to start getting in touch with folks who also have been admitted and may have similar kind of interests to you. And that's, I think, a more proactive way to go about the housing search too.
At Ramapo, we do something very similar. We have an Instagram page and we have students post their photo and a small bio of themselves. We provide them survey questions to answer so that they can choose who they want to dorm with. Our dorms are co-ed, that's just a side note. However, your dorm mate is your actual gender, just so don't get too excited. Co-ed actual residence hall, but your dorm mate is your gender. And you can choose who you want. If you cannot make a decision, then we can make the decision for you, meaning the residence hall director can make the decision for you, but we try to allow the students to make the decision themselves, usually because I may think a nursing student and an art student may not work well together, but maybe they do, maybe they have similar interests, maybe they both like Pokemon, what do I know, and they get along well. So we do start off with that, and the final decision does end up, if they can't figure it out, then the residence hall does pair a dorm mate together. I will also say that we allow family members to dorm together, friends to dorm together, if that's something that you want. I've had lots of students who come from one specific school and say, I want to dorm with this person, and we do that as well. We also have, if we have a lot of friends who want to stick together and maybe they're different genders, we can put you in the same residence hall so that you're all together.
I would just add, yes, we have the Office of Residence Life, but you as a student, once you've decided to accept your offer of admission, you sort of get turned over in May to the Office of the Residence Life on campus, where you'll start that whole housing process. And yes, there is a, if you choose one person, they also have to choose you. You get a series of abilities to choose choices like special living options. If you want a single, a double, a quad, a suite, whatever it is, we offer the full gamut of options for you in your search for residence life.
Thank you. All right, for our next question, which will go to Stockton. There are a lot of theories about college essay topics being bandied about. For example, according to a recent New York Times article, sharing information about struggles with anxiety or depression can hurt a student's chances of acceptance at some schools when included on their essay. Another says that readers' eyes glaze over at any mention of COVID. What advice do you have as to topics that students should possibly steer clear of when because they are overplayed or might otherwise backfire on the personal statement?
I would say this year so far, I have read a pretty large amount of essays pertaining to those topics, but I wouldn't say that it hurts your chance of getting accepted into the institution. But if you can be a little bit more unique in your style of writing, that definitely helps you to stand out, because we do see a lot of that. Those kinds of topics happening specifically right now. But if you can be a little bit more, like I mentioned before, about an internship or something that inspires you, those types of essays are going to stand out a little bit more.
Okay. As part of the application process, what other items should be included to stand out among other applicants? And we'll start with Quinnipiac.
What other item? For one major on campus, our film, TV, and media arts major, we offered as a BFA. And so students for that program to be offered do need to submit a portfolio of their work. Other than that, I don't need anything else. I don't look at resumes because Cheyenne made a point earlier about maximizing the extracurricular involvement section of your application. That's the place to do that rather than a resume that you attach. I'm not someone who really wants much supplemental other than the application gives you plenty of room, I think, to share. I do value the essay, like I mentioned, but yeah, I don't look for much else to stand out.
That have athletics, which I believe is all of you. For athletes that commit to a college, does their commitment have any bearing on the acceptance to said college?
I'll can take this one, and then we have someone else on the panel who got some experience with college level athletics. So I've been an athletics liaison for an ACC school for the last 4 years before moving here. You can commit, you can say you're verbally committed, you can sign an NLI, you can do all those things. That doesn't mean you're admitted to the institution. So I will say that athletes do get special consideration in the review process. There are often athletic appeals that are not afforded to the traditional student. So we work to bring an athlete in. Like I don't want to make any sort of claim that that's not the case, right? Like they are going to be looked at a little bit different, but just again, you can commit to the school all you want, but you do have to go through the admissions process. And if the admissions office says no, that you're going to have to find another school. So just, yeah, be blunt about that.
Absolutely. I totally agree. So I also work in athletics. I'm full-time in admissions, but then I'm also the assistant softball coach at Stockton University. And part of my role here is I'm a liaison for athletics and admissions. So I work a lot with the athletic director and associate athletic director, talking about athletes, prospective student athletes. But at the end of the day, it is a student athlete. So they have to be accepted into the school. But I'm also involved on the other side in athletics with recruitment. So if a student athlete does come on campus, I often meet with them in the admissions office and walk them through that process as well when they're on their day coming to meet with the coaches, because this side of it in admissions is extremely important, making sure they can have good enough grades and be on good academic standard to be accepted into the university.
There's not, and there's not, like, I would often, again, work with these high profile D1 athletes, and they think that a commitment to the university means they don't even have to apply. Like, there's not a separate athlete applicant. Like, you still have to do what everybody else does to get into the institution, right? Like the admissions credentials I mentioned, there is some flexibility there, but you still have to go through the same process. So I just wanted to throw that out there too.
Yeah, it's a little bit different at Division III as well, just from that perspective. We cannot offer athletic scholarships. So oftentimes these students will be higher academic. So they're looking to come in and compete for those merit-based scholarships because we cannot offer athletic scholarships.
Ramapo is a D3 school. So obviously athletics is not the most important thing for us. However, even if you are admitted via the coach or into an athlete, you're just a very rigorous athlete, it doesn't matter. You still have to go through the admissions process. The only thing that we do is if the coach reaches out to us and says, hey, this person really wants to get a decision sooner than we would normally do, then we could schedule a one-on-one interview with that student, similar to an IDD. However, it's just one-on-one, whether it's virtual or in person, and we can provide them with the decision then and there. However, they still are going through that admissions process just like any other student. So if they're not in, they're not in, and it doesn't matter if the coach said they want them.
Thank you. All right, only a few more, everyone. If each of you could speak a little to how the size of your institution affects class size, whether that be in large lecture halls or if the majority of your classes are in small classrooms, or if you're now offering virtual classes for undergraduate students, and what your average average enrollment is for each of those classes, be it 20, etc. And we'll start with Penn State. Thank you.
Yep. As the largest school on this panel, I'm happy to take that question. So at Penn State University, we have a total enrollment of 95,000 students. So we are a large school, supersized, if you will. But Penn State University also has 20 campuses. So our largest campus, the one that you're probably most familiar with, is the University Park campus. That campus has an enrollment of about 46,000 students. At that campus, 85% of our classes have 45 or fewer students in them. So 85% of the classes, 45 or fewer. So what that means is that we do have some large classes at the university. We have 11 classes at the university that have 400 or more students in them. And those classes might meet twice a week as that large lecture class, but then would also meet once a week in a small recitation. And a recitation would be about 25 students guided by a teaching assistant. At our campuses other than University Park, the average class size is typically about 19 students. University-wide, we have a 16-to-1 student to faculty ratio. And we do remind students that as you move further in your academic career, while your classes, in your first year might have more students, as you get further into your major, the student to faculty ratio in your class size is going to shrink. A typical semester, freshmen are guaranteed 3 classes that have 30 or 25 or fewer students, anywhere in that small range. So we have a freshman writing class, a freshman public speaking class, and a freshman seminar class that are either capped at 25 or 30 students. So typically a student will take 5 classes a semester. So you're probably looking at 2 or 3 of those small classes, 1 medium-sized class that probably has about 70 students, and then 1 of those large classes. And then as you move through your curriculum and as you move further on, your classes are going to get a little smaller. And if you are the type of student who will thrive in that big environment, that is something to consider. But if you are interested in those smaller class sizes that we have, those smaller campuses that are going to give you that average class size of about 19 students.
At TCNJ, our undergraduate student population is about 7,000 students. We seek to bring in a first year class of about between 1,500 and 1,600 students. Our institutional average class size is about 20 to 25 students. Lab sizes rarely exceed 30 students. And much like Stacy just shared, as you get to 300, 400 level classes, as you progress throughout your undergraduate career, those classes can shrink down to about 12 to 15 students per class. And we do not offer online coursework at TCNJ.
So I like to say we're a medium school. So we're a medium-sized school with small-sized classrooms. So it's kind of a unique feel where the students can come on campus but not be overwhelmed. Our student to faculty ratio is 17-to-1. So when the students get in the classroom, the professor is going to know their name. They're going to be able to build that relationship. And our auditorium style classroom size is maximum 75. And then your traditional size classroom is max 30 students. So we're on a smaller class size, and it makes for a really nice learning community for the students to be able to interact with each other and with the professors in their classroom.
I'd echo a lot of what Kevin said about TCNJ at Quinnipiac. Just under 6,100 undergrad students, or just over 6,000, I guess, depending on which way you look at it. Average class size is 20. Student to faculty ratio is 11-to-1. I will say that 100% of our classes are taught by professors. So we don't have TAs. We have graduate assistants, but they're not in teaching settings. They're doing other things across the university. So from day one, you will have a professor teaching, again, every single class at Quinnipiac. So there's that.
Ramapo is the smallest public college in New Jersey. We have total with graduate and undergrad about 5,500 students that we enrolled this past fall, I should say. Our average class size is 21, and our faculty to student ratio is 17-to-1. We don't have auditorium style lecture halls. We only have small class sizes. All our classes, including labs, are capped at 35. Our nursing program is actually smaller because it's more competitive. The class size and is capped at usually 20. So we are a very small school. We don't have GAs nor TAs, so your professors who teaches you, which is very important, especially for internships and moving forward after college, looking for a job and getting out there. You want to have that connection with your professor.
Great, thank you. Our next question is definitely a very popular question that we get, and I'm sure that you guys get as well. So maybe if you can all possibly answer this. Can freshmen bring their car on campus?
Yes. So freshmen can bring their car on campus at Ramapo, whether they are a commuter student or living on campus, which is very, very fun. We have enough parking.
Yes, you can bring your car on campus as a freshman and parking is free.
Okay, do I have to follow that? Unfortunately, parking is not free at TCNJ. And as a first-year student, if you live on campus, you cannot bring a car to campus. However, any students who are commuting to the campus can access parking.
No, you cannot bring a car to Penn State University at the University Park campus as a first-year student. However, if you attend any of our Commonwealth campuses, those smaller campuses of Penn State, you can bring a car as a first-year student.
Quinnipiac, you cannot bring cars as a first-year student. There are occasional exceptions granted if you have a job or an intern, like you're doing something off campus, because we just don't have public transportation around us readily available to do that. But again, those are on an exception base only. The vast majority of first-year students are not able to have a car.
All right, thank you, everyone. So this last question is one really from us. Since we're really in the business of helping our students, and at times it feels like there's really nothing we can do to help them. And that happens when students are waitlisted. So when a student is waitlisted, what can that student do, and what can their counselor do to help them, if anything at all, at your institution? And we'll start with Penn State, go to Ramapo, TCNJ, Quinnipiac, and then Stockton.
Yeah, sure. So we don't have a wait list every year at Penn State University, and our students who apply in our early action group are guaranteed an admissions decision. So those students would not be part of a wait list at all for us. So anyone who's waitlisted would be part of that sort of that rolling spot, rolling admissions for us. So since we fill our spots at our popular programs and popular campuses like University Park with early action students, the students who end up on our wait list are typically students who apply to us a little later, but are still interested in that University Park campus where all our spots are already promised elsewhere. Really, the most important thing you can do for us on the wait list is we invite you to join the wait list. You have to accept that offer to be on the wait list, or you can decline that offer to be on the wait list. And then we can run you through our admissions process and talk to you about other campus options at Penn State. But by accepting that offer and that place on the wait list, that tells us you still want to be considered, and it lets us know that you are open to hearing from us. Should space become available, we will reach out before May 15th.
Every year, how many students are offered admissions from the waitlist at Ramapo changes because we have a different applicant pool every year. I can say usually about 25 to 35% of students who are on the wait list are admitted. It does vary because we do have early action, early decision, and regular decision. And as I said earlier, early actions applicant pools are going in first. They're getting the first of everything. And then early decision, and then regular decision. So we first complete those applicant pools initially, and then we go into our wait list. If you're in let's say a competitive program like nursing, it is very hard to pull a wait list of student for nursing into nursing. At that point, you're only going to get in if someone else who was early action, early decision, or regular decision pulls out. Okay, so it varies every year. We do look at our wait list students, but we can't always guarantee and give a specific percentage or amount because the applicant pool is always changing. The only thing I do recommend is if you are a waitlist student and you truly are like, you know, Ramapo is my number one, I really want to be there, then again, demonstrate your interest. That could have been while you're on the wait list. So contact your admissions counselor, reach out, have a virtual appointment, make an appointment to see them in person. We could see you on the road, but that'll definitely help you.
I would encourage any waitlisted student to continue to update their application materials, especially if they haven't sent us updated materials since original submission of the application. So if you applied, say, in fall of your senior year, but you didn't really submit your report, or you didn't reach out to a third, because we take a max of 3 letters of recommendation, or we find a lot of seniors get honors or awards or recognitions in their senior year in their school setting, as well as in their local community. By all means, until you receive an official admissions decision from us in admissions at TCNJ, feel free to send us updated materials, which you can actually upload to our application portal yourself, if it's not an official document. Because we want to look at new updated information if you're going through a second or third review process. We want the most updated information. All that said, for full transparency, for our wait list, there have been years where we've pulled no students from the wait list, and there have been years when we pulled close to 100, at least in my 20 years at TCNJ. So there's no way for us to know, much like Christina at Ramapo shared, there's no way really for us to know in advance if we're going to pull or how many we're going to pull, because it's all going to be dictated by the students we did ultimately offer seats in those academic programs. So as seats are evacuated, we go back to that wait list responder pool and see which of the most qualified students we have remaining on that wait list. Again, what I will share is that we will eventually close our wait list. We don't leave students hanging. So if you opt to be on the wait list, we will send you an official notification when we have closed the wait list, so that you can then make a decision from then on out as to what school you ultimately want to attend.
Again, a sort of combination of what has previously been said. So like Stacy mentioned in hers, and Kevin just said as well, we have a wait list interest response. So if you do get waitlisted, I would fill that out. And that's the first sort of group or cohort that we look at when we do go to the wait list. And that's in a student portal. It's just yes or no. Like you don't have to fill anything out. Just click a button that says you want to remain on the wait list. I would look at, again, honors, awards, mid-year grades. I mentioned the importance of mid-year grades in a question earlier on, that I do value that academic progress has been made for a student that could help change an offer. Similar to Christina talking about nursing, the programs at Quinnipiac where I have not seen us go to the wait list are the physician assistant program. We have a little bit more flexibility with nursing, not a ton, but PA, I have not seen us need to go to the wait list for that program. Everything else, it really just depends, as has been said, on the applicant pool for that year. Sometimes we need to dip down. Sometimes, if you're in a fortunate spot and you make your class, you don't need to go to the wait list at all. It really just depends year to year, except for PA, like I said, where they don't need to go to it for that program. But happy to look at anything supplemental and hopefully can factor that into pulling you off wait list if that's the case.
It's really important at that point when a student is placed on the wait list for them to start being in communication with their high school counselor, because at that point we are going to need documents such as the mid-year grades to be reported back to us. So the more you can be in communication, the better, whether it's through the student showing their interests and especially with the counselor from the school. And then that's where it comes back into importance with the taking your senior year seriously, because we're going to be going back on the wait list and looking at each student and seeing how they did in their senior year to evaluate where we're going to go with their decision from there.
All right. So thank you, everyone, attendees and panelists. A huge thank you to Penn State, Ramapo College of New Jersey, TCNJ, the College of New Jersey, Quinnipiac University, and Stockton University. Couldn't have this event without you guys. These folks also, they show up every year for our college fair, and many of them came to our school this year for instant decision days. And our school and our community are, forever thankful to you guys for doing all of those things. I look forward to speaking with you guys fairly soon. I'll be reaching out, but in the meantime, please have a safe and wonderful evening, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.